Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the edge of a great river, its water personal. And here is the curious paradox. The river is never more yours than when you stop trying to hold on to it. It is life behaves in precisely the same. The world changes, not when you push, strain, coerce, or demand, but when you stop insisting that it remain as you imagine it should be. For the world has never once asked for your permission to be itself, and in truth, it flows more beautifully when you relax your grip on how you think. We are, many of us, taught from childhood that life is an object, something to be improved, controlled, sculpted, polished, made perfect. But life is not an object. It is a movement, a vibration, a dance. To insist that it remain as you wish is rather like insisting that a flame remain frozen in its most attractive shape. If it stops moving, it's see. And so the tragedy, though it is also a comedy, is that many people spend their whole lives trying to freeze what is essentially fluid. They try to freeze love. They try to freeze success. They try to freeze happiness. They try to freeze themselves. And then they wonder why everything feels rigid, cracked, and lifeless. Now, the point is not that one should never make plans or express preferences. The point is that an insistence is very different from an intention. An intention is like planting a seed and giving it good soil. An insistence is like shouting at a flower to bloom exactly on schedule and precisely to your liking. You see, the universe operates with a kind of carefree intelligence. It is not careless. It is carefree. It does not cling. It does not insist. It does not fear change because it is change. And so, when you attempt to impose rigidity upon a world made entirely of motion, you are in conflict with the very structure of being. Let's look more closely. You wake up in the morning and decide that today must be a good day. Not that you hope it will be, but that it must. And so you armor yourself with expectations. Everything from the weather to the traffic to the tone of someone's voice becomes a potential threat to this fragile decree. The slightest deviation becomes an intrusion. Suddenly you are no longer living, you are defending. But notice, the good day you were trying so hard to guarantee was lost the moment you tried to guarantee it. A good day cannot be demanded. A good day arises, quite mysteriously, when you stop demanding anything from the day at all. It is the same with relationships. When you insist that a person remain the same, remain loving in precisely the way you expect, remain predictable, remain a fixed image, you are not relating to a living being. You are relating to a photograph, a memory, a projection, and human beings, fortunately or unfortunately, refuse to be photographs for long. They move, they surprise, they change, they breathe. To love someone is not to hold them still. To love someone is to allow them the freedom to flow, just as you allow the river to flow. And so we come to the central realization, the one that forms the pulse of this meditation. The world transforms when you cease insisting that it conform to your fantasies. Not because the world obeys you, but because you change. You become open, you become spacious, you become permeable to possibilities that were previously blocked by your clinging. Most people think that surrender is a kind of defeat. But surrender is not defeat. Surrender is joining the dance. Think of a dancer who insists that the music remain constant, predictable, unchanged. Is this dancer free? No. They are enslaved by rhythm. But the dancer who listens, who flows, who lets the music move through them, they are not merely dancing the music. They are part of the music. Life is always offering you new rhythms, new melodies, new textures of experience. When you insist on sameness, you become deaf to all but the narrowest frequencies. You may succeed in creating a tiny island of familiarity, but you lose the vast ocean of wonder. And there is another aspect, a deeper one. When you cling to the way things are, you are often clinging out of fear. Fear that if things change, you will lose some sense of identity, some assurance of safety, some illusion of control. But identity, safety, and control are not solid things to begin with. They are clouds pretending to be rocks. The ego, this curious trickster, whispers that your survival depends on maintaining a certain image of yourself in the world. But the ego does not understand reality. It only understands repetition. It tries to recreate what worked in the past, not because it was good, but because it was familiar. The ego confuses familiarity with safety and sameness with stability. And so many people are trapped, not by circumstance, but by memory. Now imagine again that river. If a river insists on staying where it is, refusing to flow, it becomes stagnant. It becomes thick, dark, and lifeless. But when it allows itself to move, it becomes clear, cool, and alive. And when you allow yourself to move with life, you too become clear, cool, and alive. Let me ask you a question. When was the last moment you truly allowed something to change without resisting it? Perhaps it was the end of a relationship, or the loss of a job, or even the simple passage of a season. Notice how much energy went into resisting the change. Notice how much fear arose, not because the change was harmful, but because the mind clung to what was. Yet, looking back, how many of those changes eventually brought growth or clarity or freedom that would have been impossible had life remained the same? We learn, slowly and often painfully, that life's refusal to obey our preferences is one of its greatest gifts. For if life always bowed to your wishes, you would never discover anything beyond the narrow walls of your imagination. You would never be surprised, never be transformed, never be awakened. You would live in a kingdom where you were the ruler of a barren, predictable landscape, safe but sterile. But life, in its infinite wisdom, refuses to let us imprison ourselves in that way. It disrupts, it rearranges, it dissolves, it blows the sandcastles away with one gentle wave. And in these dissolutions we glimpse the truth. Change is not the enemy. Change is the movement of life itself. To stop insisting that the world stay the same is to rejoin that movement. It is to breathe again. When you begin to sense that life is movement, a great softening happens. The mind, which once behaved like a guard dog, tense, suspicious, hypervigilant, begins to relax its jaw. It loosens its grip. It notices something astonishing, that the world continues to turn even without its constant supervision. Most of us imagine that we are the ones holding everything together. We are the custodians of order, the guardians of what should be, the keepers of imagined stability. But this is like believing that you are personally responsible for keeping the sun in the sky. Whether you fret or relax, the sun rises just the same. There is a tremendous relief in this recognition. Not a lazy resignation, not a passive drifting, but a liberation from the unnecessary burden of constant control. Because look closely. Whenever you insist that something remain unchanged, you're really insisting that the world obey your fear. You're saying, please stay familiar. Please do not surprise me. Please do not remind me that I am not in charge. And yet life will surprise you. Life will move you. Life will unsettle your plans. Not because it is cruel, but because it is alive. Imagine a tree that refused to grow new leaves each spring because it wanted to keep last year's leaves exactly as they were. Dry, brown, curled. Such a tree would not survive long. But human beings often do something very much like this. They cling to outdated versions of themselves, insisting on the preservation of what has already served its purpose. A relationship that once brought joy now causes ache, but still, you cling. A job that once inspired you now drains you, but still, you cling. A belief that once guided you now confines you, but still, you cling. And each time you cling, you tighten the knot around your own freedom. But here is what is marvelous. The moment you release the grip, even slightly, even timidly, you discover that the world is not falling apart at all. It is simply rearranging itself in ways that you could not have orchestrated. Let us examine the mechanism of this transformation. When you insist that the world stay the same, you narrow your awareness. You become fixated on what must be preserved. It's as though you place blinders on your perception, looking only at what confirms your preference and ignoring anything that contradicts it. This narrowing traps you in a small, brittle version of reality. But the moment you stop insisting, just stop, your awareness begins to widen. You notice possibilities you had previously filtered out. You become more receptive, more flexible, more attuned to the subtle movements of life. And strangely enough, the very situations that once felt oppressive begin to feel spacious. It is not the world that has changed, it is you. And when you change, the world inevitably appears different. This is why sages throughout history have spoken of a mysterious inward shift that alters your experience of everything. But it is not magical. It is simply the result of easing the habitual tension that distorts your perception. Consider a simple metaphor, a clenched fist. Try to pick up something delicate with a clenched fist. Impossible. Try to receive anything. Impossible. Try to release anything. Impossible. The clenched fist can only hold on, but a relaxed hand, it can hold, it can release, it can receive. Insisting that the world stay the same is living with a clenched fist. Letting go of insistence is opening that hand, and just as a relaxed hand becomes useful, a relaxed mind becomes perceptive. Let us now look at time. Many people are tormented by the passage of time, not because time is an enemy, but because they insist that particular moments remain fixed. They look at photographs, replay memories, cling to old identities, wishing that some golden age would freeze indefinitely. But no amount of wishing will persuade time to halt. Time is motion, life is motion, consciousness itself is motion. To argue with time is to argue with the fundamental rhythm of existence. When you cease insisting that time obey your longing, you enter a remarkable state of awareness. The present becomes vivid. Not the present as a technique or an achievement, but the present as the only reality there has ever been. You begin to experience time not as a thief, but as a guide, revealing, unfolding, transforming. And you realize something quite unexpected. The present moment is never a repetition. It is always new, always alive, always changing into itself. Every breath you take is the first and last of its kind. Every sound you hear has never been heard before and will never be heard again. Every heartbeat is a unique event in the universe. To insist that this flowing, ever-renewing reality remains static is to misunderstand its very nature. Let us turn our attention now to the ego. The ego is a creature built from memory, your personal museum of what has happened. And like any curator, the ego prefers that its exhibits remain undisturbed. It dislikes change because change threatens its familiar storyline. But the trouble is that life does not consult the ego's storyline. It writes its own. When you cling to your ego, your image, your identity, your narrative, you are essentially clinging to an outdated snapshot of yourself. You are demanding that the living being you are remain identical to a picture drawn long ago. But you are not a picture. You are not a statue. You are not a definition. You are a process. Just as a flame is not the same flame from one moment to the next, you are not the same person you were yesterday, or even a moment ago. The cells in your body change, your thoughts change, your emotions rise and fade, your perceptions shift, widen, deepen. So why insist on being a fixed character in a universe made of change? When you loosen your grip on who you think you are, you discover who you are becoming. And that discovery is endlessly more interesting than any rigid identity could ever be. Now consider this. The world you see is shaped profoundly by the self you believe yourself to be. When you insist on sameness in yourself, you also insist on sameness in the world. But when you allow yourself to change, your perspective, your expectations, your beliefs, the world responds in kind. It is not that the mountains rearrange themselves or the stars alter their course. It is that your relationship to life shifts so dramatically that the world feels renewed. Sometimes this happens suddenly, as in moments of insight or crisis. Sometimes it happens gradually, like dawn breaking slowly across the horizon. Sometimes it happens so subtly that you do not realize it until one day you look back and say, "My goodness, everything feels different." And so we come to a profound truth. The world that you experience is inseparable from the consciousness that experiences it. When that consciousness relaxes, reality itself becomes more fluid. This is why the simple act of not insisting can open doors you never expected. Doors that were always there, but invisible behind the walls of your resistance. Where does this lead us? Toward a way of living that is not passive but participatory. Not rigid but responsive. Not fearful but curious. A way of living in which you and the world are not adversaries but partners in a dance that neither of you leads alone. You may wonder then, what becomes of desire in this liberated state? If one is not to insist that the world be a certain way, does that mean one must rid oneself of all longing, all vision, all direction? Not at all. There's a beautiful distinction to be made here. A distinction between desire and demand, between preference and control. Desire is natural. It is the movement of life expressing itself through you. Flowers desire sunlight. Rivers desire the sea. Human beings desire connection, creativity, meaning, pleasure. There is nothing wrong with desire, but desire becomes suffering the moment it hardens into insistence. Insistence is the belief that life must fulfill your desire exactly as imagined, or else something has gone terribly wrong. Insistence is a refusal to dance. It is stomping your foot at the rhythm of the universe. When desire flows without insistence, it becomes play. Think of the musician improvising with a band. He has desires, melodies he feels, rhythms he intuits. But he does not insist that the other players follow his exact vision. He listens. He responds. He gives space. He receives surprises with delight. And in that interplay, something emerges that no single musician could have produced alone. This is how life works when you relinquish your insistence. It becomes improvisation, fresh, alive, collaborative. Now, let's look at how this plays out in the realm of relationships. Many people enter relationships carrying a secret blueprint, a detailed plan for how the other person should behave, evolve, express love, manage emotions, handle conflict, and even grow spiritually. Whether spoken or unspoken, this blueprint becomes the silent measure by which the relationship rises or falls. But a relationship is not a construction project. A relationship is a meeting of two rivers. Each river carries its own currents, sediments, histories, temperatures. The beauty of their meeting lies not in forcing them to flow in identical channels, but in discovering the shape that emerges when they converge. When you stop insisting that your partner remain the same, or worse, remain a perfect reflection of your expectations, something remarkable happens. They begin to reveal themselves to you, not the character you cast them as, but the living being they truly are. And in that revelation, intimacy becomes possible. Real intimacy is not built on sameness, but on spaciousness. It is built on the willingness to let another evolve, to let them be unpredictable, to let them surprise you, to let them grow beyond the contours of your imagination. This spaciousness is not passivity. It is devotion to truth rather than to fantasy. Now consider conflict. Most conflict does not arise from what is happening, but from insistence about what should be happening. You speak to someone, and they respond differently than you expected. Immediately, tension arises, not because their response is harmful, but because it violates your script. The mind whispers, "This is wrong, this should not be this way." But what if you paused for a moment and considered the possibility that the response you received is precisely the one that life is offering you? Not the one you wanted, but the one you need in order to see something, learn something, release something, or understand something about yourself. Conflict softens when you stop insisting that the moment should match your preferences, because then you become curious instead of defensive. Curiosity is the antidote to insistence. Curiosity says, interesting. I did not expect that. What is this showing me? What can I hear in this if I stop trying to fix it? When curiosity enters a conversation, it transforms the atmosphere. The other person feels it immediately, though they may not know why. They sense space. They sense openness. They sense that they are not being forced into a shape. And in that space, communication becomes art rather than combat. Now, let us explore a more existential dimension of this theme: death. Death is the great teacher of non-insistence. It removes all illusions of permanence, all fantasies of control, all demands that life follow our preferences. Death is change in its most uncompromising form. And yet, paradoxically, death is also what makes life precious. Imagine if you lived forever. You might think that eternity would grant you freedom, but in truth, it would erode meaning. Immortality would make everything postponable, everything expandable, everything devoid of urgency. A sunset viewed 10,000 times becomes background noise. It is precisely because each moment is fleeting that each moment can be savored. To stop insisting that life stay the same is to honor its impermanence. You begin to see that the very things you cherish, the tenderness of a touch, the sound of laughter, the shape of a cloud drifting across the sky, are beautiful because they pass. They are performances in the grand theater of existence, never to be repeated in exactly the same way. We grieve because we love because we know we will lose, and loss awakens us to the miracle of even having had anything at all. This is not a gloomy realization, it is liberation from the illusion that permanence is required for happiness. Happiness arises not from clinging, but from participating wholeheartedly in what is here now. Let's speak now of control. Control is the ego's favorite illusion. It pretends that with enough effort, enough vigilance, enough planning, life can be pinned down like a butterfly in a case. But life will not be pinned, and even if it could, you would not want it to be. A pinned butterfly is not a butterfly, it is a memory of a butterfly. Most of what we call control is not control at all. It is anxiety in disguise, and anxiety is nothing more than insistence wearing a worried expression. Imagine a sailor who insists that the wind remain consistent. He ties down the sails so tightly that the slightest gust tears the fabric. But the skilled sailor does not control the wind. He works with it. He reads it. He adjusts. He loosens and tightens the ropes with sensitivity, not rigidity. You do not need to control life. You need only learn to work with it. Control narrows your world. Harmony expands it. Let me offer you another image. Imagine that you are holding onto the railing of a moving ship, terrified of being tossed overboard. Your knuckles are white. Your muscles are trembling. The world feels dangerous, unpredictable. But if you simply let go, not recklessly but willingly, you discover that the ship is not trying to throw you off. It is carrying you. Life is carrying you. It always has been. You are not here as a manager of existence. You are here as a participant in a great unfolding. And the unfolding does not need your insistence, it needs your presence. Presence emerges effortlessly when insistence fades. Because insistence is always about the future. It must turn out this way. It must follow this plan. It must remain familiar. Presence, on the other hand, is rooted in what is. It requires no effort because it involves no negotiation with reality. To be present is simply to stop arguing. Now, a curious thing happens when you stop insisting. The world begins to cooperate with you. Not because it suddenly becomes obedient, but because you are no longer in conflict with it. It is as though life says, now that you are listening, let me show you what I've been trying to reveal all along. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities arise. People enter your life in ways that feel serendipitous. Insights bloom without being forced. This is not supernatural. It is the natural alignment of an unburdened mind with the flow of existence. Let us look more carefully at this sense of alignment, this effortless cooperation with life that emerges when insistence falls away. Many people believe that alignment means getting what they want, but that is not alignment, that is bargaining. Real alignment means moving in harmony with the nature of things, even when the melody is unfamiliar. Consider the way birds migrate. They do not negotiate with the wind. They do not demand that the air currents behave as they expect. Instead, they ride the invisible waves of atmosphere, adjusting their wings with the slightest sensitivity. Their grace comes not from power, but from responsiveness. And in the same way, your true power arises when you become sensitive to the shape of the moment instead of forcing the moment into the shape of your desire. There is an ancient intelligence in you, older than your name, older than your ideas, older even than humanity itself. This intelligence is the same that guides the tides, that transforms an acorn into an oak tree, that turns the earth beneath your feet without asking for your permission. When you stop insisting, this deeper intelligence begins to guide your choices. You sense rather than calculate. You respond rather than react. You become attuned to a rhythm that is not born in the mind, but in the very pulse of existence. You may have felt this rhythm before, in fleeting moments, standing before a landscape that silenced your thoughts, listening to music that brought tears without any particular reason, or holding the hand of someone you love while time seemed to dissolve. In moments like these, insistence simply cannot survive. It has no foothold. It melts like frost under the morning sun. And what remains? A profound sense of ease. Not the ease of laziness, but the ease of belonging. When you stop demanding that life prove something to you, you realize that you have always belonged to this world, just as a wave belongs to the sea. Yet the question arises, if we are to stop insisting, what becomes of responsibility? What becomes of purpose? Responsibility does not disappear, it transforms. When you stop insisting, you stop trying to control outcomes, but you become more fully responsible for the way you participate. You become responsible for your presence, your integrity, your attunement. You begin to act not out of fear or attachment, but out of clarity. Purpose, too, evolves. Most people imagine purpose as a fixed destination, something to discover, something to pursue, something to achieve. But purpose is not a noun, it is a verb. Purpose is not what you reach, it is how you move. The tree's purpose is not to become a tree. Its purpose is the act of growing. The bird's purpose is not to achieve flight. Its purpose is the act of flying. Your purpose is not to arrive at some grand conclusion. It is to participate wholeheartedly in the moment-to-moment unfolding of your life. When you stop insisting that purpose must look a certain way, you discover that you have been living it all along. There is a marvelous relief that comes with this insight, like loosening a belt that was several notches too tight. Suddenly you can breathe. Suddenly you can move. Suddenly you can see that purpose is not something fragile that can be missed, but something inevitable that reveals itself when you stop trying to dictate the script. And the world responds in its own mysterious fashion. You may find that certain problems you have wrestled with for years begin to dissolve. Not because they are solved logically, but because your relationship to them has changed. Problems thrive on resistance. They grow fat on struggle. But when you withdraw the fuel of insistence, many problems simply evaporate. Let us consider the realm of creative expression. Artists often fall into despair, not because they lack talent, but because they insist on a particular outcome. They demand perfection. They demand consistency. They demand brilliance on command. But creativity does not respond to demands. Creativity blossoms in moments of openness. It flows through the cracks left by the absence of control. When a poet stops insisting on producing a masterpiece, the poem begins to speak. When a dancer stops insisting on flawless movement, the body begins to express something real. When a painter stops insisting that the image be perfect, the brush finds its freedom. And when a human being stops insisting that life conform to their expectations, the soul finds its voice. You see, insistence is a kind of noise, static that interferes with the deeper signal of intuition. When the noise quiets, you become receptive to inspiration, insight, and the subtle whispers of your own being. Now let us turn toward suffering. Much of human suffering comes from resisting what already is. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is the refusal to feel the pain. Loss is inevitable. Suffering is the refusal to accept the loss. Change is inevitable. Suffering is the refusal to allow change. When you insist that what has already happened should not have happened, you fight with ghosts. You battle echoes. You argue with the past, a hopeless endeavor, for the past will never rewrite itself to soothe your preferences. Acceptance is not agreement. Acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is simply the end of the argument. And in that ending, suffering begins to dissolve. Think of a knot in a rope, a tight, tangled snarl created by pulling against both ends. The more you yank, the tighter the knot becomes. But if you relax the tension, if you stop insisting, the knot begins to loosen. It may not unravel instantly, but it becomes workable, responsive, alive again. Most emotional knots behave this way. They resist force. They soften when met with gentleness. This is one of the great secrets of spiritual life. What you cling to becomes rigid. What you allow becomes fluid. Fear becomes rigid when resisted. Sadness becomes rigid when denied. Anger becomes rigid when suppressed. But when these emotions are allowed, simply allowed, they move. They change shape. They pass through the body like weather across the sky. And you begin to realize something extraordinary. You are not the weather. You are the sky. The sky does not insist that the clouds remain still. It does not cling to storms or grasp at sunlight. It allows everything to pass because it knows that nothing can stain it. When you stop insisting, you discover the sky-like nature of your own awareness. Thoughts arise and you do not cling. Feelings arise and you do not resist. Events unfold and you do not demand that they follow your script. In this openness, life becomes far gentler than you ever imagined. Not because circumstances are always kind, but because your relationship with them becomes kind. Let us extend this understanding to the world at large. Many people strive tirelessly to change the world, yet they do so with clenched minds. They insist that society conform to their ideal vision. And while the desire for a better world is noble, insistence breeds conflict. It divides. It hardens. It blinds people to the humanity in one another. But when you stop insisting, when you engage the world with openness, curiosity, and compassion, your actions become more skillful. You speak with greater wisdom, you listen with greater depth, you move from understanding rather than from fear. Change rooted in insistence becomes domination. Change rooted in openness becomes transformation. And the world responds differently to each. You cannot force the world to change. But the world changes, often profoundly, when you stop insisting that it must. Suddenly, you see opportunities where before you saw obstacles. Suddenly, you hear perspectives you once dismissed. Suddenly, you recognize possibilities that were invisible behind the wall of your expectations. This is not magic. It is perception freed from rigidity. And when perception expands, life expands. There comes a delicate moment in every human life when one begins to sense that the insistence on control, the demand that the world obey a particular pattern, is not merely exhausting, but impossible. And not only impossible, but unnecessary. For the world is not a machine to be operated, it is an organism to be danced with. You may recall times in your life when you felt utterly defeated by circumstances. A plan collapsed. A certainty dissolved. A relationship took an unexpected turn. In those moments, when you realized that your insistence was powerless, there was perhaps only faintly at first, a curious feeling just beneath the grief or frustration. A sense of space, a softening, a strange, quiet clarity, as if a great weight had been lifted, not by success, but by surrender. This is one of the most surprising gifts of letting go. When you stop insisting that the world stay the same, you stop carrying the burden of protecting an illusion. The illusion that you control the unfolding of life. The illusion that stability is something you must manufacture. The illusion that security can be achieved through resistance. Once these illusions fall away, you discover something far more dependable than control. Trust. Not blind trust, but the trust that arises from witnessing again and again that life has its own intelligence, its own rhythm, its own timing, that you are part of a much larger flow than you imagined. Imagine a leaf floating gently down a stream. It encounters rocks, eddies, sudden curves in the water, but it does not panic. It does not thrash about or demand that the water calm itself. The leaf simply floats, responding to each shift with the natural grace of one who knows that movement is not an enemy. Now, of course, you are not a leaf. You have choices, fears, memories, preferences. But beneath all of that, you too are carried by a current deeper than your conscious mind. You too are part of a flow that extends far on your individual story. Let us now explore the subtle transformation that happens in your body when you stop insisting. For insistence is not merely a thought, it is a tension. You can feel it in the jaw, the chest, the stomach, the shoulders. It is the sensation of bracing against reality. But when you release the insistence, even slightly, the body unravels, the breath deepens, the shoulders drop, the nervous system shifts from wariness to ease. The heart becomes more available to experience. You begin to perceive with a new quality of attention, one that is not grasping, not defending, not calculating. It is the attention of someone who has stopped arguing with the moment. And in this relaxed attention, life reveals itself in astonishing ways. Colors appear more vivid. Sounds become richer. The movements of people around you feel more understandable, more human, more interconnected. This is not mysticism. It is physiology. A relaxed organism perceives reality more clearly than a frightened one. In this clarity, subtle pathways become visible. You notice solutions that would have been invisible under stress. You sense possibilities that rigidity would have concealed. You feel guided not by logic alone, but by something deeper. Intuition, if you like, or simply attunement. And here's the crucial thing. When you stop insisting, your intuition becomes trustworthy. Because intuition is drowned out by fear. Fear shouts, intuition whispers. Only when the shouting subsides does the whisper become audible. People often ask, how do I trust my inner voice? But the question is premature. First, one must stop insisting. Only then does the inner voice emerge, not as a command, but as a gentle sense of rightness, a soft inclination toward harmony. Now let us consider the matter of possibility. When you insist on a particular outcome, you narrow the future to a single imagined path. You reject alternatives before they even appear. But life has a way of offering possibilities far beyond the limits of your imagination. Possibilities that cannot enter your world as long as you cling to a single expectation. It is like holding a door shut because you are waiting for someone specific to knock. But life may be knocking at another door entirely. When you stop insisting, all the doors become visible. Serendipity enters. Unexpected meetings occur, ideas converge, paths open. Not because the universe is now favoring you, but because you are no longer obstructing the movement of life with your narrow insistence. There is an ancient saying that the wind does not favor the sailor who cannot adjust his sails. And in the same way, life does not unfold easily for the person who refuses to adjust to its currents. But when you allow yourself to move with the wind, to let it shape your direction instead of resisting it, you find that even challenges carry a certain grace. Which brings us to a curious paradox. Life becomes easier, not when it becomes simpler, but when you stop fighting its complexity. Complexity is not a flaw in the universe. It is its signature. You are not meant to predict everything. You are not meant to control everything. You are meant to participate in the unfolding mystery. And that brings us naturally to the matter of identity once more. Your identity is a story you learn to tell about yourself. A story that includes memories, preferences, wounds, desires, habits. But if you look closely, you will discover that this story changes when you stop insisting that it must stay the same. You become more fluid, more curious about your own evolution. You stop seeing yourself as a fixed entity and begin to sense that you are a verb, not a noun. A becoming, not a being. This brings an extraordinary freedom. You no longer need to defend who you were. You no longer need to maintain an image. You no longer need to fear the loss of an identity that never truly existed in the first place. Instead, you begin to witness yourself as part of a living process, changing, learning, deepening, expanding. And once you allow yourself to change, the world around you begins to respond in kind. People treat you differently because you are different. Opportunities arise because your openness invites them. Life rearranges itself around your willingness to evolve. This is the essence of the teaching. The world changes because you change, and you change the moment you stop insisting that things remain unchanged. Now, before we transition toward the final portion of this meditation, let us reflect on one more dimension: joy. Joy does not come from achieving a perfect life. Joy comes from participating wholeheartedly in an imperfect one. Joy is the dance between acceptance and curiosity. Joy is the laughter that arises when you realize you never needed as much control as you thought. Joy is the discovery that life, in all its unpredictability, is not against you. It is simply too alive to be controlled. And when you stop insisting, you become alive in the very same way. We now come to the final movement of this exploration, the quiet turning point where comprehension blossoms into realization. For philosophy, if it is to be alive, must not remain an idea. It must enter the bloodstream. It must be tasted, sensed, embodied. And so I invite you to consider, not merely as a thought, but as a lived experience, what happens when you stop insisting that reality should be different from what it is. For in the very moment that insistence ends, even for a heartbeat, a subtle door opens. Not a door somewhere far away, but a door within your own awareness. It opens into a spaciousness that was always present, though overlooked. A spaciousness that says, "Ah, so this is life. Not the life I imagined, not the life I demanded, but the life that is here." And in that recognition, something magnificent stirs, a stillness that is not static, a peace that is not withdrawn, a clarity that is not constructed. It is the peace of being aligned with the movement of existence rather than resisting it. Many people seek peace as though it were a prize, something to be earned through effort or discipline. But peace emerges naturally when you stop agitating the waters of your mind with insistence. Peace is not something you achieve, it is something you allow. Let us imagine for a moment that you are holding a glass globe filled with swirling sediment. Shake it, and the particles dance chaotically, obscuring clarity. Set it down, and the sediment slowly drifts to the bottom. The water becomes clear not because you forced it to, but because you stopped shaking it. Your mind is this globe. Insistence is the shaking. Clarity comes when you stop. This clarity reveals something that many overlook, that life's changes are not intrusions but invitations. They are not disruptions of your path, they are the path. Look back on your life. and you will see that every significant moment of growth came not from things going according to plan, but from the plan collapsing, from being surprised, from being humbled, from being pushed into territories you did not choose, but ultimately needed. The mind seldom welcomes these experiences, but the soul recognizes them instantly. To live without insisting is not to live without intention. It is to live with alignment rather than resistance, to cooperate with life, not dominate it, to sense the movement of the moment and respond with fluidity instead of rigidity. And so the question arises, how then do we live? How do we walk through the world in this spirit of openness? Not through effort, not through techniques, but through a shift in attitude, a relaxation of the inner posture. Instead of clenching around what you want, hold it lightly. Instead of defending what you fear losing, allow it to breathe. Instead of insisting that life remain familiar, welcome its strangeness. You will discover that life is far more intelligent, far more benevolent, far more mysterious than your expectations ever allowed. Let us turn now toward a more contemplative reflection, a meditation on the nature of the moment itself. Close your eyes if you wish, or simply soften your gaze. Listen not to my words, but to the silence behind them. Notice the breath entering and leaving the body. Notice that although you may call it your breath, you are not doing it. It is happening. It is life breathing you. Notice the beating of the heart, quiet, rhythmic, tireless. You do not insist that the heart beat, it beats anyway. Notice the sounds around you, distant, near, faint, sudden. You do not choose them. They arise, they pass, they change. Everything around you is changing, effortlessly, continuously. And yet something within you remains open enough to perceive it all. This openness is who you truly are. You are not the clinging. You are not the resisting. You are the awareness in which all of it rises and falls. And from this awareness, life appears not as an obstacle course, but as a vast, unpredictable, shimmering dance. Some steps are joyous, some heartbreaking, some confusing, but all belong to the same dance. When you cease insisting that the dancers behave a certain way, you begin to see the choreography hidden within the chaos. Now, gently return your attention to the idea with which we began. The world changes when you stop insisting it stay the same. Not because the world suddenly obeys you, but because your perception becomes spacious enough to meet the world as it is. And in meeting the world as it is, you discover that reality is not a fixed landscape. It is a living organism, responding to your openness with surprising grace. When you stop insisting, you start listening. When you stop insisting, you start seeing. When you stop insisting, you start participating. And in that participation, life reveals itself not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a mystery to be experienced. Let us bring this home with one final image. Imagine standing at the shoreline as waves rise and break before you. If you insist the waves stop, you suffer. If you try to hold the water, it escapes. If you demand that the sea remain perfectly calm, you miss the thrill of its movement. But if you stand there, feet in the sand, wind against your face, breath steady, and simply allow the ocean to be the ocean, you find yourself strangely moved. The sea does not become calm because you wish it to, but your mind becomes calm because you stop insisting. Life is this sea. You are not here to control its tides. You are here to feel them, to move with them, to allow them to shape you into someone softer, deeper, freer. The world will continue to change, with or without your consent. But when you stop insisting that it remain the same, you discover the profound truth. You too can change. You too can flow. You too can live as lightly as a leaf upon the stream. And in that lightness, the world becomes luminous. Not because it has changed, but because you have awakened to its movement.